The Space Marines of Warhammer 40k are massive powerhouses of epic proportions, with one chapter truly being a whole army unto itself, capable of laying waste to entire planets, if not entire systems. Yet whilst many people focus on how powerful a single Space Marine chapter is, very rarely do people ask the question, what if we had multiple chapters working together? But more specifically, what we're going to be talking about today is which chapters are best to work together. So ladies and gentlemen, in today's episode, we are going to be taking a look at what is, in my opinion, the best combination of chapters to work together. Those that complement each other's strengths, make up for others' weaknesses, or are just so goddamn destructive together, you won't even have time to worry about how good they are together, because you'll be dead right quick. Without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get cracking on with today's video. So first off, ladies and gentlemen, we got a classic pairing, an OG pairing, and a quite tragic pairing to be frank, because it is in fact not a pairing, but a trilogy. That being the Salamanders plus the Raven Guard, and of course, the Iron Hands, aka the Istvaan Massacre trio. Now, whilst this is a very well-known combination, in my opinion, it is a very slept-on combination, because everyone knows these fellows work together, but most people know that they got absolutely demolished at Istvaan, and because of this, they often overlook the fact, why did Rogue Lordaeron send these three together? And no, it wasn't just because they happened to be in the neighborhood, it's because these three complement each other so incredibly well, they become a near unstoppable force. Allow me to explain. And of course, I'm starting off with Salamanders because, well, duh. The Salamanders are very good at holding. When you think about defensive legions, the Salamanders are up there. If you need position held, by all means, Salamanders will do it. And their arsenal reflects that, specializing in close range firefights. Flames will take care of anything that comes in numbers, and if something is either a Terminator or a tank, a melter gun will make short work of it, especially a master-crafted Salamander's melter gun at that. And if they want to get all close and personal, a Thunderhammer is a good way to tell them to take a couple steps back, or meters in this case. Side note, I imagine Salamanders are very good at golf. Salamanders also love their infantry, but also their heavy armor. Be it Land Raiders, Vindicators, Typhoons, anything in between. Even in the modern day 40k, they are one of only two Space Marine chapters, the other hands being the Iron Hands, to possess super heavy tanks, aka the Glaive, or the big old Troom gun. Volkite baby. In combination with all this put together, the Salamanders can hold a position and be damn stubborn to move. But whereas that is their strength, they also have their weaknesses. And two in particular. One, the first one, rather obvious, they can't move so good. When you are thicker than a bowl of oatmeal with 3 separate seas, you ain't exactly going anywhere quickly, meaning that oftentimes Salamanders can be outflanked or outmaneuvered, or they can be beaten to the punch when speed is the key. The second, and the less obvious, is that they tend to lack a lot of destructive firepower. Now what do you mean, Brad, I hear you asking? You see, a Salamander is a dragon, and when a dragon breathes its fire, anything in front of its mouth is very dead. But only in front of its mouth, unlike a ballistic atomic missile, in which anything in about a 100-kilometer radius, probably more, is absolute ash, or worse, radioactive fallout. That is where the Iron Hands come in, because if you want excessive destructive force as a combat doctrine, the Iron Hands are a very good choice. Now you may be thinking I just picked the Salamanders and made something for the Raven Guard and Iron Hands to go along with, but if you switch it around for either of them, it works. I put it like this. The Salamanders are your holding force, defensive force. The Iron Hands are your offensive force, your firepower. And then you have the Raven Guard, your movement force, or your positioning. And for my fellow history buffs, you will know how important positioning and movement is in warfare. For oftentimes, the person who won the fight was not the one with the bigger army or the better weapons, though that really did help. More often than not, it was the chap who had the better positioning and forced his enemy to fight on their terms. Terrain is everything. And if you're faster, you get first pick of the best terrain, meaning that your opponent has to deal with whatever scraps you have left, which are usually not nearly enough. So, you put all this together, these three work incredibly well together. The Raven Guard can do hit and run, they can pull an enemy into a position where they do not want to be. Not to mention, they're putting him in that position when he's already on shaky ground and kept off balance by Raven Guard shenanigans, which they do quite well. Lo and behold, they then run into a wall of dragon, with Angry Melter and Flamer and a whole bunch of heavy armor and Terminators. Not only do they have to fight in an unfavorable position, they have to fight against something that is terribly mean, and going nowhere real quick. And then if they want to think about getting away, well then lo and behold you have a giant angry cyborg with enough heavy ordnance to make America blush, meaning that the only place you're going is straight down to hell. Either that or you get blown up all the way to Kingdom Come. Choice is yours. The fact of the matter is, these 3 legions were sent to Istvaan for a purpose. They work so incredibly well together because they complement each other perfectly. Of course, it doesn't matter how well you complement each other when you realize you have about 10,000 guns in your back lines. And of course, treachery will beat any type of tactics, because you can't prepare for something you don't know what's going to happen. And of course, there's the modern day issue with the Iron Hands straight up just hating the Salamanders and the Raven Guard, claiming that their 2 fellow chapters have a hand in their Primarch's death, with Vulcan and Corvus Corax choosing to pull out, letting Ferrus Manus go on his death spree. Even though that's a load of bullshit. But hey, emotions. Even though the Iron Hands is supposed to be a unemotional chapter, but yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, the chances of them actually working together in canon, very unlikely. But hey, in a perfect world, these guys would be the perfect match. At least in my opinion. And the best part is, you could have each one of them take the different lead depending on what you need. Are you working in a defensive engagement? Have the Salamanders take the lead, being an inviolable bastion, blocking the foe and preventing any advanced. Also, the Raven Guard run interference and do backline shenaniganery, such as targeting logistics or disrupting supply chains. All the while, you got the good old Iron Hands dropping enough HE to make old Mount Vesuvius blush with envy. Do you need something to be absolutely obliterated? Have the Iron Hands lead the charge. With an absolute load of destructive firepower and mechanical aggression, they will purge the foe, and should anyone try to stop them, throw the Salamanders in their way as a badass roadblock. All the while, the Raven Guard will trick the enemy into funneling their forces deeper and deeper, preventing any type of breakout, and keeping them right in the killing zone, ready for the Sons of Medusa. And if you need something done really quickly with time of the essence, have the Raven Guard lead. Whilst the Raven Guard are moving hard, moving fast, and taking names and kicking ass. If they ever meet something they can't go through, send in the Iron Hands. If they meet something that they can't go around and have to deal with, send in the Salamanders. They really are just the perfect combination of Space Marine. And under ideal circumstances, they're nearly invincible. Istvaan, however, was anything but ideal, as we sadly would learn. But that was our first example, and my favorite because it involves the Salamanders. I lied, it's not my favorite, but I do love the Salamanders. But let's move on to our next pairing. Now this one I am quite a fan of, because we have the Emperor's Spears and the Raptors. Quite an odd pairing, but actually when you get into the weeds of it, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. The Emperor's Spears are an Ultrawing successor founded in the 25th founding, specializing in drop-pod assault and close-quarters combat warfare. We then have the Raptors, who were a second founding successor chapter hailing from the Raven Guard. And their speciality is basically guerrilla warfare. If it involves striking from the shadows, they're most likely a master of it. And at the outlook, these chapters are basically chalk and cheese with the way that they work. Despite being an Ultramarine successor, the Emperor's Spears favors close-quarters combat assault, specifically drop-pod assault and shock tactics. They love dropping down from the middle of the sky and just causing chaos. They are proud and quite tribal in their nature, with them holding strong ties to their homeworld, as well as an air of mysticism and many specific rituals. They are truly proud of their warrior culture, and they believe that they are there to fight and to win. And oftentimes this means that they will choose the more direct and glorious approach than the logical approach. Quite odd for Sons of Guilliman. Indeed, this uniqueness has put them at odds with the Ultramarines themselves, as well as several of their other Ultramarine successor chapters, most notably the Aurorans, which after the events of a campaign together that went sour, would create a feud that lasted basically until the Indomitus Crusade, when they realized they had bigger fish to fry. The Raptors, on the other hand, are quite the exact opposite. They are the most raveny of the Raven Guard, to be frank, specializing in hit-and-run warfare. They're often so-called believed to be the most realistic Space Marines, seen as being pragmatic, favoring camouflage as well as long-range weapons, in addition to long-range firepower to devastate the enemy before even reaching melee. They operate very much like a modern military in that sense, or at least it's believed that they do. They definitely give up that sense of, hey, we are logical in what we do. They're also relatively humble for Space Marines, not because of any type of morality or anything like that. They just have a job to do and they get it done in the most efficient way possible. Not for them are glory and honor, they just want to get the job done. Again, that efficient, soldier-like mentality. In fact, I think that's an excellent way to put it. The Emperor's spears are warriors, but the Raptors are soldiers. So if these two are so conflicted with one another, why on earth would I put them together? Because, just like our first pairing, they make up for each other's flaws absolutely perfectly. The Emperor's spears are known for shock assaults, going in hard, going in fast, to skravak orak, or to redden the earth, as their battle cry is said, and that's what they want to do. This, however, often means that they tend to end up a little bit in over their heads. Sink or swim, as we usually say it. For once you get stuck into the melee, there's only one way out of it, and it's not backwards. The Raptors, however, could be there with a lifeline, because if you have a bunch of Ultramarines dropping in, chainswords revving, and cutting and chewing up and spitting across all over the field, wrecking the enemy in a violent melee, that means that they're going to draw a lot of attention, which means their backs are going to be turned. And the last thing you ever want to do to a Raptor, let alone any Space Marine, is turn your back to them. I could totally imagine a case scenario where the Emperor's spears drop in, draw all the fire, and get the enemy to focus everything on them, all the while for the Raptors to come round back and slowly begin dismantling them piece by bloody piece. As the commander begins worrying and keep on throwing more and more units, wondering why on earth are the Emperor's spears not being held off, he slowly then realizes that his command staff is in fact dead, and there is a very large combat knife at his throat, because the Raptors, well, you gotta watch those boys very carefully. And as regards to them actually working together in canon, whilst it is true that the Emperor's spears are boisterous and proud, we have seen time and time again that when it comes to the overarching goal, they will gladly put aside their pride. And they're not antagonistic by any sense of the means. They don't deal with bullshit, and if you try and put up with your bullshit and politicking, they'll tell you to go to hell. Very much unlike the Ultramarines who are used to that. These guys are direct and oftentimes blunt. The Raptors would work very well with that. They're not assholes. They don't deal with bullshit. They're soldiers. They got a job to do, they're here to do it. At the very least, the Emperor's spears will respect that. And the Emperor's spears, being sons of Guilliman, whilst they may not be the perfect blue boys, they still understand that tactical flexibility is very important. And flexibility in all of the regards. So I don't think you're going to have to twist around 17 different ways to get them to work together with the Raptors. Especially if the Raptors are willing to let them get on the glory, and prove to be rather capable of themselves, and not high, mighty, and hoity-toity, which the Raptors are not. Also, I love this mental image. You get a bunch of cultists on a jungle planet, then all of a sudden, screaming drop pods slam into the earth, tarantula turrets blazing, then come a horde of screaming Ultramarines, these barbarian-clad, chainsword-wearing monsters. And whilst you get your las cannons set up ready to pour fire down into the valley where they landed, you notice that your guy next to you just exploded, and then you explode by a stalker bolter rifle, because it turns out there are hundreds of Raptors in the trees, and they are slowly picking you apart, where you get a raging berserker horde of Ultramarines charging forward. It sounds really weird saying Ultramarines and berserker charging horde, but it works, and goddammit does it work well. Also, side note for you all, something I found out while researching for this video, it turns out that the Emperor's spears are reviled in their home world. It's kind of the idea like, oh, they're taking your sons to turn them into these inhuman angels that are only going to die in war. So the women of the planet actually revile them and will spit and chant hexes against them to prevent them from coming and like hide their kids. It's really weird but also very interesting, but I like it because it kind of fits with the whole Emperor's Spear vibe of them not being Ultramarines or not being classic Ultramarines. Like, they're unique for Ultramarine successes, so I like it. It fits. As for the Raptors, to my knowledge, they're the only chapter that has a mono color scheme. I may be wrong about that, but I've never seen it. But onto our next pairing. If our next pairing was all about balancing out each other and making up for weaknesses and making sure that everything was in well and good order, this is literally not that in any way, shape, and form. In fact, it's the exact bloody opposite. Because next up we have the Star Phantoms and the Minotaurs. The Star Phantoms are a successor chapter of unknown origin, but it is highly speculated that they are from the Dark Angels. And I think they are because both they and the Dark Angels say no, we are in fact not related. Sure, Lion Boys, sure. And they come from the 23rd founding. The Minotaurs are an unknown chapter of unknown lineage from unknown founding. Though it is basically widely speculated and actually confirmed by the dude who wrote them that they're supposed to be loyalist Iron Warriors. But again, nothing has ever been confirmed in canon, so take that with a little bit of a grain of salt. The Minotaurs are known for brutality. They're not mindless butchers or berserkers, but they are certainly nice chaps. They will stay out of your way for the most part, unless you happen to have something that they want, in which case, you'd be lucky if you get even hello before they come knocking asking for it. Not always politely. They're always deployed at full-on chapter strength, and they are used as a sledgehammer to break apart and rend the foe. And they are not beloved by their fellow Space Marines because they have a lack of honor. These guys are pragmatists in every single sense of the word. They will hit you hard and continue hitting you, and when eventually you decide to surrender, they will steal all the shit that is not bolted down, then come back with some bolt cutters, cut off the bolts, and take that shit as well. Honestly, these bastards give the Blood Ravens a run for their money when it comes to being kleptomaniacs. And their disregard for Astartes' conduct and code of honor has gone so far to earn them a reprimanding from none other than the Ultramarines themselves, with Manius Calgar himself declaring that if the Minotaurs ever entered into Ultramarine space, they would be put to death. Why? Because basically the Minotaurs had to settle a dispute between a second founding Ultramarine successor chapter as well as the Doom Eagles, and essentially they spat on both of them, bent over them, spanked them naughtily, and took all of their Great Crusade era relics. Needless to say, having a second founding successor chapter being bent over and used as a common whore made big ol' Papa Smurf a little bit angry. But the Minotaurs don't care, because they got the job done and they earned all the goodies. Also, they kind of have the High Lords behind them a little bit, so when you got the literal rulers of terror in your corner, it's kind of hard for anybody to do anything or say anything really. Now, Star Phantoms are somewhat different. They're a very insular, very secretive chapter. Again, another thing that makes me think they are Sons of the Lion. In addition to being very insular, they are also quite grim, with them possessing something called the Mortuary Cult. Essentially, they believe in the celebration of death, with them hailing the Emperor as Imperata Mortifex. And death is something to be celebrated, hence why they have some of the most complex and intricate death ceremonies of any Astartes that there is. But this is not why people know them. People know them for their complete and utter disregard for collateral damage. These guys love destruction. They are known for two things: First Strike drop pod assault filled to the brim with goddamn Devastator Marines, so much so they have an extra Devastator Marine per company, with 3 rather than the normal 2. Or severe long-range bombardments that utterly devastate anything regarding the foe, not to mention anything around the foe in a good 50-meter radius. This has gotten them into a lot of trouble with the Imperium and very pissy with many other people, much like the Minotaurs, and they've been investigated by the Inquisition on more than one occasion. Yet, they are loyal wholly, truly, and utterly, if a little excessive. So, why put these two together? As I mentioned earlier, whereas the other two were complementing each other's weaknesses, this is making a spicy sandwich extra spicy. I imagine them working together kind of like this. The Star Phantoms pull up, and they absolutely obliterate the enemy. I'm talking whirlwinds, vindicators, orbital strikes from strike cruisers, everything under the sun. They absolutely flatten the area. Yet this enemy is quite potent, so they don't manage to kill all of them. Send in the Minotaurs thereafter. Whatever the Star Phantoms don't outright absolutely destroy, the Minotaurs will absolutely wreck in close quarters assault, supported of course by drop pods full of Star Phantom Devastators. Is it overkill? Yes, but overkill is the best kill. Because let's say you got a wall, brick wall, you need to get it down. You got a 12-gauge shotgun, and you got a sledgehammer. Could you do it with both of them? Probably. But why on earth would you use those two if you could use a 20mm anti-material rifle as well as an industrial strength jackhammer to get the job done? That is what the Minotaurs and the Star Phantoms are. For when you don't give any more fucks and you just want to make sure that bastard is dead. Kinda like the Eversaw option or the Exterminatus option, because by the time those two are done, it's pretty much going to be like an Exterminatus hit the city. Because anything that the Star Phantoms don't outright destroy, the Minotaurs are going to pick up. And whilst the Star Phantoms do have a reputation for not really telling their enemy where they're dropping their ordnance, I imagine they would be a bit more willing to communicate when the Minotaurs are on the receiving end. Because trust me, you do not want a pissed off Spartan Iron Warrior coming to ask why on earth did you drop a bunch of HE on his position. So I imagine this would be a opportunity of convenience rather than any type of camaraderie, but I think it could work. Maybe. Or we may finally get the answer to the question, what if these guys were on opposing sides to the Verdun War? Either way, it's going to be one hell of a read. But, on to our next pairing. I hope you guys like rain, because we're talking about the storm next. with the Storm Wardens and the Storm Lords. The Storm Lords are a chapter with an unknown founding and an unknown lineage, but specialize in close quarters armored assault warfare. The Storm Lords, however, are a second founding successor chapter, hailing from the White Scars, specializing in all what the White Scars do, which is moving fast and hitting hard, and having a special hatred for killing orcs. Now, this pairing follows in the same spirit as our last, aka if one sword is good, why not have two? The Storm Wardens are a chapter that love their melee combat, but they're also very tribalistic in their nature, with them drawing heavy inspiration from their home world, that being the very Scottish-inspired world of Scaris. And this ain't me putting two and two together. The tribesmen are known for painting blue war paint on their face in quote-unquote wold style, and they are given claymores, with power claymores being a favorite of the Space Marine chapter. And this tribal mentality gives rise to two things. One, they absolutely love melee combat. One, they absolutely love swinging those big chunky claymores straight into the fray. In addition, glory is everything. The officers of the chapter are known for running straight long into enemy formations, seeking out the biggest, the baddest, and the dangerous, to challenge them to duels, to claim the honor of killing a great foe, thus getting honor for themselves. This is a dual-edged sword, because whilst this has led to many stunning victories and many dead enemies, it has also led to a near equally dead number of Storm Warden captains who bit off far more than they could chew. And to help them get to the foe, they have created a unique combat doctrine, that being centering around the armored assault. Essentially, the air power of the Space Marine chapter will come in and rain hell. We're talking Thunderhawks, attack fighters, as well as strike cruisers, just raining down fire on the enemy position. After that comes the armored assault. We're talking Rhinos, Razorbacks, all being led by a squadron of chunky land raiders. These will then slam into the enemy before disgorging their cargo, usually tactical marines and stern guard veterans, normally led by a captain seeking the enemy leader to claim his head for the glory of the chapter, and of course himself. Speaking of hunting glory, however, the Storm Lords know that quite well. Ever since their second founding, ever since their creation of the second founding, the Storm Lords have competed with the White Scars directly in sheer amount of glory. They have a tenacious rivalry with their forebears, wanting to prove themselves their equal, or in some cases they're better. This means that they too will often choose the most direct path to glory. Quite common for White Scars, with these guys take it to the whole next level, with a common practice of them scalping their defeated enemies, particularly orc war bosses being prize additions. As to how they fight, they're White Scars. They move hard, they move fast, and they make a beeline directly for the leader of the enemy forces. So how would this work? Simple. There'd be a joint aerial bombardment by Thunderhawks as well as other aircraft, strafing the enemy, causing all types of havoc. Before you get a massive fist of Stormlord, angry Scotsmen wielding claymores slamming directly in the middle, supported by a bunch of fast-moving throat-singing boys. Again, this is very much like the last pairing. It is hard and fast times 2, but unlike the other pairing, there's not really much safety beforehand. This is either you sink or you swim. This is you go big, you go home, you go hard, or you go yard. Simple as. Either there's going to be a lot of glory, feasting, and song, or you're going to have a bunch of dead-ass Space Marines. But for the Storm Wardens and the Storm Lords, they would have it no other way. Because what is the point of living if you have no glory and honor to bask in it? Also, the idea of a bunch of Scottish tribesmen charging forward with claymores, being surrounded by a bunch of Mongolian horse archers is, yeah, that's doing something for my old history nerd stuff, I ain't gonna lie to you. Also, side note, I know that claymores and Scottish tribesmen are like 1,000 years apart, but I mean, a rule of cool, leave me alone. And ladies and gentlemen, that then brings me on to our last and our final pairing of the evening. And if you thought it was going to be something sensible, no, definitely not sensible, but possibly very, very, very effective. And to end off today's video, ladies and gentlemen, we got a very holy pairing, shall I say, that being the Black Templars and the Red Scorpions. The Black Templars are a second founding successor chapter hailing from the Imperial Fists. The Red Scorpions, however, we have no idea who their progenitor is and we don't know what founding they come from, but they are a pretty old founding, being at least a couple thousand years old. The Black Templars are crusaders in every single sense of the word. If you want crazy, zealous, hyper-religious, maddened, melee-loving monsters, the Black Templars are your boys. Of course, you don't need me to tell you that, everyone knows the Black Templars, everyone loves the Black Templars or hates them, or you love them but hate the people who play them. The Red Scorpions, on the other hand, are somewhat similar. A relatively secretive chapter, they hold themselves directly tied to the Emperor, not necessarily one Primarch. They are known for genetic purity, believing the Emperor to be a truly defined figure, and abhorring anything that is said to deviate from his light. Meaning that the Inquisition has quite found use for them, and they have found helping the Inquisition to be an acceptable waste of their times. And they have found that they quite enjoy helping the Inquisition do whatever it needs to do. Unlike the Black Templars, however, they are very much adherents to the Codex Astartes. And they don't have one particular specialization, being a sort of jack of all trades, just as the Codex Astartes dictates. But why did I put them together? Quite simply put, they both love the Emperor. Not only that, they also hate people who don't love the Emperor as much as they love the Emperor. Both of these chapters have sown disdain if they meet someone whose quote-unquote faith is lacking, which has led to both strife and conflict amongst other Imperial forces. But if you meet someone who is just as hyper-religious and crazy about the God Emperor as you, there is a very good chance that you two are going to get along like a house on fire. Or a heretic on fire, the heretic which you set on fire, and then stab with a sword multiple times. I can only see one slight problem with this, and that's the Codex. The Red Scorpions quite like the Codex, and there's a reason why there's a meme about the Black Templars using the Codex as toilet paper. But they love the Emperor above anything else, and I imagine that their love for the Emperor would more than make up for the Black Templars' disdain for the Codex and vice versa. But how on earth would this work? Quite simple. The Black Templars would be the Black Templars, running in doing Black Templary nonsense, which involves a lot of faith, a lot of fire, and a lot of melee prowess. The Red Scorpions would be right there with them. But whereas the Black Templars are the sledgehammer focusing on that direct punch towards the enemy, doing whatever the hell they want, the Red Scorpions, they can be whatever you need. Do you need more punch? Red Scorpions can do that. Do you need someone to hold off the enemy in a defensive stance? Red Scorpions can do that too. Do you need additional scouting / strike force element to ensure that the Black Templars don't get outflanked? Red Scorpions can do that too. Essentially, every single weakness that the Black Templars have, which basically revolves to the fact that they decide to run in melee first, the Red Scorpions can fill. And when you consider that they have that immense love of the Emperor, the Black Templars and Red Scorpions both are going to be far more open to working together with each other, and less likely to believe that the other is lacking in the Emperor's faith or cowards or any bullshit. There's enough faith there to give each other goodwill. Maybe. It depends. But I think these two would work well together. And that, ladies and gentlemen, has been my examples of what I think would be really great Space Marine pairings. But it's important to note, the main thing that determines if Space Marine chapters are going to work well together is this. How willing are they to work together with one another? Because it does not matter if you have two Space Marine chapters, because it doesn't matter what two Space Marine chapters you have together. If they are willing to work together, they will be an unstoppable force of sheer, utter wrath and rage. But you may have the very best of the best, but if they're unwilling to work together, well, you're probably better off with just having one chapter. Throw back to the first example with the Iron Hands, Raven Guard, and Salamanders. Yeah, that combo may be undefeated, but getting an Iron Hand to work together with either of them is going to be rather difficult, and that's on a good day. Because at the end of the day, humanity alone is strong, but humanity united is utterly unbeatable. And that goes double for our superhuman super soldiers of the Adeptus Astartes. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you also very much for watching. I do love and appreciate each and every one of you. Let me know down below, which is your favorite combination? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? And do you guys want a part 2? If this video gets 1,000 likes, I will give you a part 2. So if you like it, like it. And if there's not enough likes, share it with some folks so they can give it a like too. But I want to say a massive thank you guys for watching, but even more massive thank you to my awesome members and Patreons. Shout out to my Lieutenant GM members, Miss Eddie V3, Miss Major of the Void. Shout out to my Sergeant GM members, Mr. Damiak, Mr. Warsmith Fireheart, Mr. Andy McGee, Mr. Bowen, Mr. Sean RL7, Mr. Matthew Merrill, Mr. Sergeant Cossack 68W173D, and Mr. That Guy. Shout out to my Corporal GM members, Tremel the Math Kitty, Lord Rosarius, Tech Priest Toaster, Mr. Bowen, Shauna Smithers, Gentle Salamander, The Witch of Warhammer, Major Doshinet, Edward King, and Mr. Overanalyze This. Finally, but certainly not least, shout out to my Privateer members, Mr. Thomas Lawns, Mr. Ivan_SPW, Mr. Monkey Man, Mr. Michael Ayeda, Mr. Diego Castro, Mr. Fortis Unum, Mr. CMDNA, Mr. Eric Massaro, Mr. Dom Marek, Mr. Ken_Sakura 333, Mr. Adrian Van Vuren, Morally Bankrupt, Matthew Peter, Joshly 1320, Adrax1, Mr. Ethan Elam U7L, and Mr. Kiri Khan. Thank you. I love you. I appreciate each and every single one of you. Join up today with our memberships to get a bunch of awesome benefits, behind the scenes stuff, early access to these videos, as well as my love and support, and especially on the Discord. But remember, this right here will always be free. So whether you give your boy $1 or not, I will love you just the same. Mwah! But ladies and gentlemen, I've been the General Bradley 101. You've been beautiful, awesome, and amazing people. Thank you so very much for watching. You almost should say Lord there, boys and girls. And I will catch y'all next time. Dismiss, Rangers. I still can't believe the Iron Hands blamed the Salamanders and Raven Guard. Oh my god, you guys are so fake. Your dad didn't charge him to death with us even though you told him it was a bad idea. Me personally, I think they're up the Sabinated Creek without an augment. But hey, what do you guys think?